program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
A very good morning and welcome to a gorgeous, gorgeous spot out here on Djuma. This is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
A very good morning to all of you and welcome on the Sunrise Safari. My name is Jamie and this morning Seb, also known as Sebastian, is on camera with me. And we're coming to you live from a place called Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. And I'm very sorry because I was going to provide you with a beautiful view of the morning, but I lost comms completely, so I didn't quite realize how far into the morning we were. Though it is a cool and cloudy day on Djuma, I tell you what the temperatures are, and we're at a very, very quiet hyena den. Nobody's home this morning. So we are in a part of South Africa known as the Greater Kruger National Park, a place absolutely famous for its incredible wildlife. And because this is a live and interactive safari, you can send through your questions on #SafariLive on Twitter. I was so hoping tiny little heads would come poking out of the hole, but it seems as though our hyenas are not yet awake, perhaps enjoying a late morning lie-in on a chilly morning. So yesterday was an exciting sunset safari. All sorts of things were going on. There were wild dogs. James thinks that he heard them chase a leopard up a tree, so we're going to go and see if we can find out which leopard that might have been, and figure out, of course, where our two royal cubs are, Hosana and Shongile, the two little leopard cubs that have been wandering around. And then who knows where the morning shall take us. Now, I know that James was planning on seeing if he could figure out where those wild dogs are. So without any further ado, let's see if he has any news.
I'm afraid I do not have any more news. Good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be with you. Please excuse the pre-show to the show if you happen to see it. You know, it's just our way of warming up our brains and minds and mouths. My name is James Henry. I am currently sorry about that. I am currently looking for wild doggies, and it is really rather a lot of guesswork at the moment, because we left them, well, not too far from here yesterday, and they would have woken up at first light, come wandering around, and I had hoped that they'd come towards this area, towards Buffelshoek Dam. They do not seem to have as yet. They may well be off the property already, because they move very quickly, and of course in a day like this, the light is such that it becomes quite difficult to see any tracks. Our first animal of the day, what is becoming rather reliable sighting at Buffelshoek Dam of some hippopotami. And it is a very good idea just to sit and listen for a little while to whether or not there is some alarm calls, general irritation from the animals of the wilderness at the sight of wild dogs herring by on the search for breakfast. And for those of you who weren't with us yesterday evening, we had a spectacular time with the Sands pack. They killed something very large. I'm not sure what it was. Could have been junior Kudu. They killed it quite a long way from where we are now. But they went to sleep on a place called Nyala Road South, which is, well, actually very close to where Hosana and Shongile were born. Round about there, round about that little cave system in the drainage line there. But they would have started to move at very first light. It's quite nice to see a hippopotamus doing some moving around as opposed to just sinking and coming up, doing their morning exercise. As I was saying, hashtag Safari Live on the tweet is how you get hold of us. That is on Twitter. If you do not have a Twitter account, really it is not an irksome thing to set up. Just set yourself up a Twitter account. You can make yourself an outlandish Twitter handle, which will create great amusement for me. So if you would like to do that, you can do that. Twitter.com. And then, if you're wondering what a hashtag is, you go to Twitter and you send through, well, you tweet something, and then you put the hashtag, and then Safari Live at the end of it, and that will then send through the question by almost magic, I think, into the final control, and they will feed it into my ear. And if you do have any queries at all as to how that functions, well, you're going to struggle to get them to us, of course, because the only way to ask us is hashtag Safari Live. But you'll figure it out. Go to Twitter. Righty, Tayla McCarty is out on foot, and she's probably on quarantine clearings and would maybe be lucky with the dogs arriving there, but she'll tell you about that now.
That would be fantastic if I got a sight of the dogs on foot. However, I wouldn't be too disappointed if I didn't either, because I think that would be an exceptional sighting. Now, good morning. My name is Tayla, and on camera with me today is David. Herbie's also around, and as you may have heard, so are the wildebeest. Good morning, animals of the Savi Sand, Wildtain. How are you today? Aren't they wonderful? My herd, my animals, my people. I don't know why I said that, but that sounded like very, very fitting. But as you can see, it's actually still a little bit dark outside today. Again, the clouds are out. Last night we were lucky enough to experience the most beautiful sunset. This morning, however, I'm not sure if a sunrise is on the cards. So that means that the animals are a little bit nervous of us, and I don't blame them in this sort of harsh light. That's all right. We won't bother them too much now. They've clearly shown by stampeding and snorting that they're a little bit unhappy with us. So perhaps before the show ends today, we'll make our way back towards the great open plains of quarantine and try and do an approach on the wildebeest. Well, when hopefully it's nice and sunny and you can see how lovely and shiny their coats are. I'm sure that there will be many Impala around here, and who knows, maybe the McCurdy too. But I haven't seen them since I've been back. We found some imposters, of course, the other day down on Cheetah Plains. But, well, those are going to be the animals that I'll be looking for this morning. And if we can assist in giving a helping hand and finding the dogs, we're going to do that too. But I suppose we need to start going then in that direction. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves, well, you know, at the speed of a wild dog can run at, we'll definitely get left in their dust. But Herbie's just up in front, so we don't want to get left behind too far away from him. There he is. Let's go and see what else is about. I don't even think the insects will be awake just yet. It's getting darker and darker as the days go on. It's getting colder and colder. I've even got a jersey on for a bushwalk, which is unusual. Normally I only wear one in the last hour of the shows when we're driving. So walking, it's just how you know how cold it is. But there actually isn't a breath of wind. It's really, really good weather. David, your backpedaling has got really, really good. Of course, you know how our fine cameramen are able to do the most amazing techniques, swivel around backwards, forwards, and David does a mean back pedal. We're going to keep searching. I think we're going to march down towards Inyala Road, that area, to see if we can help James. Jamie is on the search for all sorts of things. I'm not sure what those are, but we'll let her tell you.
All sorts of things. In fact, I'm not even sure what they are. Leopards, wild dogs. James has just radioed me to say, have I picked up on any tracks for the wild dogs coming back in this direction? Now, I know that this is where James had them yesterday evening, so I'm sure there are tracks somewhere around here. But the light is so dim that I'm really happy to hear that the walk team is out in this area, because they can definitely help us in spotting those footprints. Here's a fun fact about wild dogs, just while we're driving along and I'm staring over the side of the vehicle. Most wild dogs, their middle 2 toes, because remember, wild dogs only have 4 toes. They don't have the 5th in the same way domestic dogs do on their front foot at the back. The toes, the front 2 toes of most wild dogs are partially fused at the base. And I'll try and show that to you in a track when the light gets a little bit better. At the moment it's not going to be very clear at all. These are all dogs from yesterday and hyenas. But I'll try and find you a nice clear example of the track, or maybe the walk team, whoever happens to find the wild dog tracks first, they can show you what a fused toe looks like, or fused pair of toes looks like in wild dogs. And I'd love to know why they have that. Be interesting. I assume it's got something to do with long distance running, because that's what wild dogs do. They just run all day until they stop running. And perhaps speed as well, because they're also very, very quick. Now, apparently the dogs came racing through here, and James never saw what they were chasing, but he did hear the sound of a leopard growling. And the way he described it was, it sounded odd. And the way that, what he was trying to say, he said, was basically like the leopard's voice almost hadn't broken yet. Like a human being. He said it wasn't a full-bodied adult leopard growl, which means it probably was one of our little cubs, and I want to go and see whether or not we can figure out where they are. Obviously make sure they're okay, although I'm certain that they are. This is not their first encounter with wild dogs. We've seen it happen several times in the past. And they've always managed to jump up and leap up to safety. But mornings like this, things tend to hide away. Luckily the cloud cover's made it slightly warmer than it might otherwise be. Okay, let's dip down here. I just want to check one of the leopard cub's favorite water holes. They love to go through to this water hole just across the Mulwati. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm giving a thumbs up to the game drive radio. That's not very helpful at all. It is such habit. Somebody was talking to me. I'm so sorry. I was 2 thoughts happening at once. Because Lou was telling me that you're all very, very excited about seeing the wild dogs, hoping we can find them again. And at the same time, somebody was giving a message on the game drive radio as to which way they were going. And the combination of the 2 thoughts led to a thumbs up to all of you. So, thumbs up to you guys as well for joining us on the Sunrise Safari. I'm sorry, that wasn't actually intended for you. The number of times that I do that is a little bit excessive. Okay, so let's check out this area. Often when the cubs are around this Mulwati drainage, which is basically a dry riverbed, often when they're around here they come through to this pan. Let's have a quick look-see. Oh, it's raining. Is it my imagination? It's not my imagination, it is raining. That's unexpected. Huh. And there's no sign of any leopard cubs. Well, Seb, you just shout when you feel as though you need to cover up. I think we're okay for now. It's very light. That took me by surprise. No leopard cubs here. No Tingana here. He likes the spot too. And we're going to continue on our search along the Mulwati drainage line, and while we do that, James is checking further to the north.
I am indeed. I have got some wild dogs tracks here, but I think they're from yesterday when we followed them up here. Now, what wild dogs do is they go to sleep at night, which is what any civilized animal does, of course, and then they get up very early in the morning, which again is what any civilized human being does, or creature does, and then they go hunting. But I cannot find where they have gone this morning. Now Jamie is down to the south of us, and I'm pretty sure that if they'd gone down towards her, she'd have picked up the tracks, because she's on the main artery there. And she was just explaining to you what wild dog tracks look like, of course, and so therefore one would expect that she would have seen them. I would definitely expect Jamie to have seen them. Now we've only got the tracks going up the way from yesterday evening. This is where they killed their little Kudu. I'm going to call it a little Kudu because the speculation is too irritating. And they lay down next to the car here, and we had the most wonderful time with them. They were in there. Yari, you're interested in how large wild dogs are compared with domestic dogs, or what somebody referred to yesterday as civilized dogs, which I thought was the most wonderful way to describe a domestic dog. It really does depend on the dog that you are talking about. They are much larger, for example, than a Chihuahua, but not quite the same size as an Irish wolfhound. They are roughly the size, or sort of about the mass of an Alsatian or German Shepherd, and they are probably just slightly taller than that. They've got quite long, what look to be spindly legs, but they are a lot tougher, I think, than they actually look. So that's what you would that's what you expect to see. And then they of course are black and white and brown, mottled sort of camouflage colors, nature's natural camo outfit. And they've got enormous ears, all the better to hear each other and their prey, and of course you with, like the big bad wolf. Now Sven, you ask a very valid question. You say, how do we tell if the tracks are fresh or from the previous day? It's just a bit of a drag mark here. Sven, it's difficult. It's not easy to tell. No, that's a scuff mark from something. It's not a drag mark. It's difficult to tell, Sven. Experience plays a huge role in it, but the basics are on any given substrate. So let's pretend you've got a sandy soil like this, and you've had no wind. Then the definition of the track, how clearly defined it is, will give you an indication of the age. Then what's walked over it will also give you an indication. So if you've got nocturnal animals like civets walking over the top of your tracks, you know that they are not particularly fresh. If you've got say something like a track of a millipede on top, you know although they are relatively fresh, they probably moved before it got warm, because those animals move around in the middle of the morning. You check to see if you had any doves tracks on them, because doves get mobile quite early in the morning. So it is difficult to tell. And then if there's wind, you have to sort of check if you can find some kind of indication of how long the wind's been blowing, etc. It's really quite difficult, and much easier to sort of learn in practice. Now this is, you might expect to find them. Oh, Franklin's getting very upset. Alrighty, I'm just going to get hold of Lex on the radio. We are going to hand you over to Tayla at the moment. She can tell you what's going on foot.
We're still making our way at the moment. We're coming past, down to Philemon's Dip, which is just down below us. We haven't picked up on any tracks just yet. We are still waiting. Well, not waiting, we're still searching for some tracks to spring up in front of us. But seeing as though everybody's talking about tracks, hopefully we're going to find some on this nice sandy road, which we can have a look at too. But I think a lot of different cars have been coming up and down here, which is making it a little bit difficult for us to have any tracks. Let's look at these ones. They're a bit difficult to see. Sorry, Davy, before you stand on them. Over here. There's a lot of different things that are going on. Well, not a lot. There's one thing that is going on inside this track. There are little paw marks all over. You can see some of them carrying on that way. There may have been more than one individual over here, but this to me looks like it was a scrub hare running up and down on the road. Now, most of the tracks would have been nice to actually see a clear track where it was sitting, where it had its bottom sitting down in the sand. You can see all 4 feet, but we'll keep a lookout for that. But just unfortunately, this track has been trodden on too many times. But we'll see if we can find a clearer one as well. Maybe some hyena tracks. It might even be a little bit too early, or we're just going to have to find a road that hasn't been driven yet so that we can see what was happening last night. You know, something that we're not seeing so much of at the moment is actually tortoise tracks. At one point, there would be tortoise tracks everywhere you go, crossing, zigzagging back across the roads, but unfortunately they are. As I say that, here is a tortoise track coming out of the bushes, crossing the road. This must have been late yesterday afternoon. You lose the tracks here because the cars have been driving over, but you can pick them up going across this little middle section, this little island, which normally doesn't get driven on unless you're pulling off the side of the road. And then it continues and crosses out once again. So just as I said, we weren't seeing too many tortoise tracks. I got my wish and I found one, but not a very fresh one, I'm afraid. There's a lot of warthog tracks out and about at the moment too, so perhaps we can find some of those. Now, where is a good scrub hare track? So I have to. Oh, hang on. What are we walking on over here, David? What tracks? Now you see we have a problem. We've got the cars, and we've also got David, who's walking. Right, let me get in front, David, so you don't squash all my tracks over here. It looks like. Darby, where are you going? If you have a look over here, these ones are quite nice. We'll play a game. I'll put my hand, let me sit down, put my hand next to them for size, so you can see that they're fairly small. There are 2 tracks here, 1 track over there, 1 track just at the back. This one is most likely the front foot, and I reckon that that's the back foot over there. Very small. Who do you think could have created this track? Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter account, James has kindly explained to you how to create a Twitter account, so no one has got an excuse anymore. It's a nocturnal creature. I'll give you a couple of clues. It's one that we see at night. That's all I'm going to give you for now. We'll see if we get a couple of answers in first, and then if we don't get any that are correct, we'll give a couple more clues and you can all try again. So the tracks are going that way. Came down from Philemon's Dip, probably from in the drainage system, in fact, because that's normally where you can find them. Walked up the road and up towards Quarantine, where it would have gone in search of something to eat. Let's see, I did grab a piece of grass to play with as I walk. See what else we've got down here. Nope, not very much at all, unfortunately. It's a little bit quiet. Good morning, Ramiro. Now, you have asked me if I prefer presenting while on foot or driving. I like both. I'm trying to think. They've all got their perks, I suppose. I suppose on foot is great because you get to get up close. The camera gets to get up close into your face, as you can see David is now doing. And I don't know, I think you're closer to nature when you're on foot. Being in the car is fantastic, especially when you've got lots of big game around. So bushwalks definitely, I think there's a lot more to talk about when it's a bit quieter, because you can just pick up a piece of grass, you can tell a nice story, you can find an insect, or, well, sign of an animal, whether it's tracks or dung from the night before, whereas when you're in the car you tend to miss the smaller signs that the animals leave behind. But I think it's good to have a balance between the two. Walking and driving is quite nice. It is good, of course, to just go out and stretch your legs too, don't you, David? You love walking backwards. It's David's second favorite thing to do in the whole world. You must see he even trains by exercising backwards. He starts down in the dip, with Philemon's dip, all the way down there, and then he runs as fast as he can backwards all the way to the top of quarantine, and he has to do that 5 times every single day, otherwise he doesn't get lunch. Hey David, no, I'm just joking. That's actually what Rebecca and I do. We run backwards up this hill like absolute lunatics. Now, Delane, you've asked if that track that we just saw was perhaps a genet track. Close. It is definitely a creature of the night, but unfortunately, a genet track is really, really quite tiny. Now, if you did watch the sunset safari last night, you would have heard that Rowan and I actually said we wouldn't mind seeing a genet, and you won't believe it, just as the show finished, coming into camp, I smelled the strong popcorn scent that you often get from urine dung. From leopard dung. What is urine dung? That's interesting. So from leopard dung, and I said, I can't see any leopard tracks, it's probably a genet. And as I said that, pulling into camp, one darted across the road. So that was quite nice. I looked for the tracks this morning, but unfortunately they've been obliterated, but they're much smaller. They're about possibly a quarter of the size of the track that we saw earlier. Much smaller feet. So what else has got big round toes like that, but has only got 2 lobes on its pad? Liz, there we go. We're getting very, we're not even getting warm, we're getting hot. And Liz, you are correct in your answer. You have guessed a civet. You are indeed 100% correct. I don't have a book on me to show you a picture of what an African civet looks like, but perhaps there's one that's been seen on the show and somebody has taken a screenshot, or you could probably just search for it on the World Wide Web and then hashtag Safari Live, just so that everybody else can see what beautiful creature left those those footprints behind. Now, I'm hoping to see a civet one day on drive, but they're very, very shy, and that will, of course, mean we'll probably only find one on the Sunset Safari. We're going to keep searching. We're still trying to march into the area where the wild dogs were last seen. Let's go back on board with Jamie and her team.
I haven't seen that many civets on drive, but I have seen many, many Impala, and at the moment they are thoroughly entertaining to sit and watch. The males are racing around, chasing each other backwards and forwards, and the females as well, of course, as we start to go into their breeding season. And yesterday, while we were out on foot, Sensor and Herbie were sitting just a little bit behind me, watching a family of Dwarf Mongoose start to sort of head home for the evening. And one of the males, I promise you, nearly ran into Herbie. Sensor said he nearly dropped the camera and ran. He was determined that something was charging out of the bush to actually come and squash him. The Impala are so distracted at the moment, not the ladies so much. We've got a group here of females and their offspring. But the males are completely not paying attention to anything else around them except for the ladies and other potentially threatening males. I was hoping we'd find a leopard here. I'd say that the calm state of these Impala would suggest otherwise, although you never know. Perhaps Hosana or Shungile are stalking somewhere around here. I'm doing a careful check just to see. And I think with this many eyes and ears, it seems relatively unlikely. Lou suggested that I just mention how cute one is in order to see a leopard, and that of course being a reference to the one day where I was out with Eggsy on camera. We hadn't even started the show yet. It wasn't even the start of the Sunset Safari, and I saw a cute baby Impala, and I said to Eggs, "Oh sweet, let's start on that." At which point Eggsy was bouncing up and down in his seat, positively speechless, trying to go leopard, 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 leopard. And then Karula came and killed the cute baby Impala that I was looking at. It was an interesting afternoon, a roller coaster of emotions that went from aw to yay, we have a leopard. But it was still a little bit of a shock to everyone. I then went around for the rest of the afternoon calling everything cute in the hope that it would repeat itself. I'm afraid to say that apparently is only ever going to happen to us once. Aren't they beautiful? You can see that rusty dark red color that we see typically in winter when it's a bit chilly and their fur is all fluffed up to help to keep them warm and to insulate them. And they do change color. They go from that dark red to a sleek, shiny rust color as the day warms up. Excuse me. Have any of you seen a leopard? I can hear sounds in the distance, but I think that's probably more males chasing each other around again. This would be a very appealing harem to a male. I just want to double check that those aren't alarm calls. Sorry, I'm just going to go quiet for a minute. No, definitely not. Just male impala being male impala. I always feel a little bit sorry for the impala ewes. They spend their lives either being chased by the males, pregnant, or giving birth and being chased by the males, and then nursing lambs until it's time to sort of repeat the whole process. Well, this is one particular animal, quite a few animals actually, that don't ever alarm call when wild dogs come racing through, and that's because they need all of their energy to race away from them. Let's go and see whether or not James has figured out where our wild dogs have raced to.
No, he hasn't. He's figured out nothing. He's feeling rather sorry for himself. And also, yes, feeling sorry for the impala ewes, as Jamie mentioned, either pregnant or being chased all day long. Very unpleasant time of it they have, but I suppose maybe they enjoy being pregnant, perhaps. I imagine if you do it as often as they do, it's not quite the event that it is in humanity. And I think birth comes a little easier to them. It's an interesting subject, that, because of course these days in Western society the birth of a child has as much administration in it as a sort of prolonged medieval military campaign. And it is astounding to think that as a species we have managed to be as successful as we have, and yet the performance over producing an offspring in Western society specifically is so astounding. It is so filled with books and classes and magazines and free advice from all hither and yon, great department stores to sell you all of the things you need, and by George there seem to be thousands of things that you need to buy in order to produce an offspring in the way that nature intended and has been doing for the last 200,000 years or so. And I always find it amazing to compare the difference between the lack of fuss produced in producing an offspring by, say, the impalas Jamie was talking about, and our own species. Now, I've found no more tracks. I think they've gone north. So we're going to go back up the Cheetah cut line. We're on the far eastern boundary now, and we're going to see if we just can't pick up some tracks, after which I'm probably going to give up and we'll go and see what else we can find. Maybe we'll head down to Chitwa, maybe we won't, we'll see. Perhaps we'll find Tundi and Tamba, perhaps we'll find nothing. Maybe I've used all my luck. I wonder if one is able to use all one's luck. Not sure. No, you see, Michael, they're very, very unpredictable. You say, does a pack of wild dogs use the same route always when it comes through an area? Michael, they don't. They're actually very, very random in their movements. They're not like, for example, if you're looking for Tingana and you've got an idea of where he started, you will, even if you don't find him, you know, he's a male leopard we follow quite often, you can go to certain places where you think he will have walked, and he will almost certainly have gone past them to mark his territory. So he's got fairly predictable routes. Not to the extent that you always know where he is, but you can pretty much tell where he's going to go. It's just when he's going to be there that is the issue. It's a bit of a quantum phenomenon, that. And the wild dogs are completely opposite, and it's largely, I suppose, because they are not territorial. They do mark, certainly, but their home ranges are so vast that they don't actually ever mark a specific territory. And that means that they never take the same route twice, or very seldom take the same route twice. And so it does make them that much more difficult to find. I mean, if we'd wanted to find them completely today, if we'd been obsessed by finding them this morning, we'd have stayed with them last night until it was pitch black dark and we knew and we'd seen them bed down. And then we would have got up half an hour earlier, or we would have headed out half an hour earlier and gone back to that same place with the spotlight and then sat with them until they woke up. I think we were probably about 5 minutes too late, because we just got there. Leopard drag mark going north into Biffle's Hook, so I'm afraid we're not going to be able to follow that one. I'm just listening to the radio. Oh, Sandy, you're wondering about wild dogs and introducing them, and is it possible to do it? It's been done very successfully to various parks around South Africa. They've been reintroduced to Madikwe, to the Pilanesberg, to Mfolozi, to Mkuze, and they've done very well there. And then, Sandy, you ask a slightly more controversial question. Would it be possible to introduce them to other parts of the world in order to save the species? Sandy, yes, it would, in theory. Do you want to do that, though? You know, yes, I suppose, look, if they were going completely extinct and there was no chance of them surviving in Africa, then absolutely I would advocate it. Would I advocate it into a natural system? No, I don't think I would, Sandy. I think that I would advocate doing it into a very protected sort of reserve. Would they survive? Let's say you cut out a piece of Rocky Mountain National Park and fenced it, and you put some wild dogs in there. Would they survive? I think they probably would. I think they'd really struggle with the winter, so maybe you'd have to take them to a slightly warmer place, but I think they would adapt to eating the local wildlife fairly quickly. Interesting experiment, of course, is the tigers of South Africa. And a little while back, before things went very far south with the project from a human point of view, which is unsurprising, the South China tiger, which is now functionally extinct in the wild, was introduced to a piece of the Kudu, which is in central South Africa. And that South China tiger, the idea was to try and see if it could live in Africa, and not necessarily definitely not to release it in Africa, but to maintain it there and try and bring the population to some kind of sustainability where they could be reintroduced in the wild in China. Go ahead. So that's the story there. That project unfortunately didn't come to fruition because of human beings started fighting with each other. Just listening to the... Doesn't look like the dogs have run along the Buffelshoek Dam, at least the Buffelshoek boundary. Okay. Copy, thanks, Chris. So just to keep 500 subjects here. Chris has done the northern boundary. He's a good driving guest. He doesn't see any tracks of the dogs running along the road. He said they may have crossed over a particularly hard piece perhaps, but they weren't running along the road. So maybe they're still with us on Djuma. Keep an eye on the dam cam. So that experiment unfortunately did not come to fruition, and it would have been very interesting to see if it had. There is still a tiger project going in the Kudu, but that's not with South China tigers. It's basically with habituated circus tigers or Bengal tigers, which are not, unfortunately, nearly as endangered as the South China tiger. Right, let us go across to Tayla McCurdy and see where she is at, what she is doing, and what she has got to tell you.
at the moment we are playing with things in the grass, and as you can see, there is a spider holding on to dear life on a piece of grass, I suppose, just as we are. Now, we've been seeing these spiders all over at the moment, and I'm almost certain that it is a hairy field spider. There are about 14 different species of hairy field spiders out here in South Africa, so they've all got slightly different sort of colorations, but this one looks very much like it, and it is related to the orb-web spiders. And in case you're wondering, an orb-web spider, we get golden orb-webs, which have been the most beautiful webs, and then we get the garden orb-web spiders, which have got, well, the most beautiful colors and patterns that you have ever seen on a spider. And then, as well as a really bizarre one that, in case you didn't know, is also in the orb-web spider family, is the kite spider, which is that one that has, well, interesting shapes to it, also normally brightly colored. This one, however, has not got any interesting shapes, but it definitely does have some beautiful markings. I'm just going to jump in back over here. Is there another bug?
Yeah.
I can't see it. Where is the other bug? Oh!
Long antenna.
Oh, wonder what that is. That's an interesting looking thing. I have no idea what it is. It's got massive legs, so it must jump very well. Very long antenna, which it will use as a sensory organ to identify different things. Now, I'm not certain if it knows that there is a spider a couple of millimeters away from it. But that spider doesn't actively hunt, so it wouldn't sort of go and grab it. They normally wait for something like that to get stuck in its web. Now, they build their webs at night, and they're sort of hard working at night time, like most spiders sort of are, and then they hide away, like this one is doing, on the tip of, or the inflorescence of the grass, or on a shrub, under a leaf, just trying to hide away so that its prey does not spot it and give away its presence sort of its web. And then it will get stuck in the web, and it will go down and bite it and then eat it eventually. Now, this web looks a little bit tattered, but I think the spider has made its web on an animal pathway, which is a bit silly because it's going to get knocked and damaged quite often. Now, James, you've asked if spiders will remove unpalatable insects from their web. I'm sure they will, because spiders are actually quite neat and tidy. You won't see too much debris in a spider's webs. They will often take things away. So with the stabilimentum, when you see with a garden orb, sometimes there can be a little bit of debris sort of all stuck in there. That's my stomach making those weird noises. Sorry, I heard a strange noise and I panicked for a moment, but it was just coming from my tummy. But they're incredible, these spiders. Now, oh, what did it just drop? Did you see that, David? It's very difficult, of course, for me to see. I'm sitting a little bit further away. But the spider is quite interesting. It did just drop something out of its mouth. As you can see, I'm a fair distance away. And, of course, it's really great because you've got an up-close personal shot of the spider and its friend, the insect. Now, just as that thing has long legs, I don't know if all of you heard what happened to me this morning, but I was hit in the face by a massive grasshopper. So grasshoppers are able to jump quite high. This particular one was able to jump from the ground straight up about 1.5 meters, and it hit me square in the face. I then was sort of hunched over because I was putting my coffee cup down on my bedside table. I then stood up straight, smashed my head against my shelves, which were above me, knocked all the books off of it, which then came tumbling down and knocked my lamp off of the table, as well as my coffee cup. It did about 3 backflips and then smashed all over the floor. I was covered in coffee, my bed was covered in coffee, everything was covered in coffee this morning. It was quite fantastic, but I caught the insect safely and I took it outside. It was not harmed, I promise. I did maybe throw it outside though, but it got outside safely. Nonetheless, they've got weak, poorly developed wings, so for something like that, I'm sure it would have had an okay landing and not a crash landing. We're going to see what else we can find. We'll keep checking for those hairy field spiders as we move around and see if we can find some that are eating things. Oh, now, seeing as though we're chatting about spiders, Daniel, you've asked what is the biggest spider that I have seen on Safari Live. I'd have to say one of the baboon spiders. I'm trying to think, but yeah, that's probably the biggest spider I've seen so far. I haven't seen many spiders. We've seen a lot of brown button spiders all the time around, and I think we've put a couple of those up. Lots of island spiders. They're not particularly big either. So yes, a couple of really big bark spiders. I actually saw the biggest bark spider I've ever seen before, a couple of evenings ago, and probably a month ago now. So other than that, I'm going to say it has to be the good old baboon spider. But hopefully we'll be able to see some rain spiders. I haven't actually seen any rain spiders out here, which look almost like a more slender version of a baboon spider, but they get much bigger. Their legs are a little bit, of course, longer. They're quite nice, and they make really, really interesting webs too. We're going to keep on searching. We're not doing very well in terms of making up for time and trying to get to places very quickly. Jamie has found herself in the Mulwati, a nice cool spot on a very chilly day.
I've actually just popped out of the Mulwati, which is of course one of the best places to search for our leopards, but unfortunately I can't find a track, any sign of them anywhere in that area, so I don't quite know where they've gone, but they're not to the south of Chelepan. So no tracks for the leopards in there. It is a good place to search because, as Tayla said, it's a cool place on a cloudy morning. It's a fantastic place if you're a leopard. Lots of big trees to climb up into and to sit comfortably in. Lots of cover to sneak up on potential prey. Oh, slender mongoose. I wonder what the chances of that are. Let me see if I can get it on camera for you. They have just called in a leopard on a Buffelshoek that caught and dragged something from Djuma onto Buffelshoek, which is a property to the north of us and a property where unfortunately we cannot go. But they said that they'll keep us updated as soon as they've got an idea of which leopard it is. I think the chances of the slender mongoose are, well, slender. I think it's shot in here, but I think it's found its way into a hole. Sometimes you get lucky with slender mongoose sightings. Sometimes you just get that one individual that's quite relaxed around vehicles, but most of the time they're not like dwarf mongoose. They're gone in an absolute shot. The same applies for banded mongoose out here for some reason. I think I've seen them 3 times maybe in the entire 2 years that I've been here. Alright, well, since all else fails, let's have a look at a slightly chilly looking magpie shrike. Oh, don't you fly away. Sit. Still. Oh. It's still there. Marvelous. Here we go. Beautiful. And looking puffed up and a little bit chilly after the rain. Goodbye. Well, that was for our new viewers, a magpie shrike. Used to be known as a long-tailed shrike. Not particularly difficult to see why it was called a long-tailed shrike. It's raining again. Okay, so the leopard they've just found is Impala. Just got that update. I'm going to go and dive into some cover away from the rain. In the meantime, James has found a bird with a long bill.
Here's a toucan. I found a toucan. Do you like toucans, Ron? I do. Oh, there we are. I found your toucan. Wasn't that nice of me? It was very nice of me. Obviously that's not a toucan, everybody. It is a hornbill. A red-billed variety, and you might find that I'm sounding slightly jaded. I am feeling jaded at the moment. I'm feeling irritated, miffed. Thoroughly put out, basically, by the performance of the wild dogs, the performance of the weather this morning. It is spitting on me. The universe is literally spitting on me right now. I suppose it's not a bad thing. We do need a little last bit of rain before the dry months come upon us. But we could use some rain with wild dogs, I think. The grey heron, while I park under this tree in an attempt to stay dry. It's that big bird there, Ron. You see the enormous bird sitting on the end of the tree? There he is. Well done. Sorry, I didn't even point. I was so busy talking about myself and how I was feeling. Let that be a lesson to us all. Anyway, the grey heron doesn't seem to mind the weather at all. Quite likes it, probably. Now, I'm just going to tell you about, first of all, that they've just had an update from that leopard that Jamie was telling you about on Buffelshoek. It is Impala, we think. I was rather hoping, of course, that it would be a female by the name of Karula, but it is not. It is Impala. So he's still enjoying his retirement. And we have now checked just about every single road in this vicinity, around about Buffelshoek Dam, Nyala Road North and South, Hyena Road, Buffelshoek Cutline, Cheetah Cutline, and really I've run out of ideas. So maybe those doggies got up early, went into the block in search of something to eat, found something quickly, ate it, and then found some shelter. And that's quite possibly what's happened. It's getting a little inclement out here. Do you want to put the cover on?
Seems okay now.
Okay, I think it stopped again. Siberia Zumi, Marco? I think you can do better than this. You say, does a bird with a long bill have an extensive list of expenses? Marco, that bird is so offended by your joke that it is flown away, clean off the Djuma Reserve, and is now currently probably heading for Mozambique. But yes, it is quite clever. Louise is obviously falling off her chair with laughter. So, well done, Marco. You've elicited, I'm sure, more than one laugh today, which we need in the absence of any large game species. So what we'll do is do another foray down Hyena Road and then probably head somewhere else. Nobody's found any tracks. This hippopotamus is enjoying the weather, definitely the two hippos. There were 3 here the other day, and I'm pretty sure that the other one has now moved on. I don't know why or where it would have gone. The Buffelshoek Dam continues to be my sort of nemesis waterhole. Ever anything here for me. I always come here expecting to see a mvula lying on the dam wall. He doesn't hang around these parts anymore. I did hear a leopard calling this morning very early. I was on my bed having my coffee, and I heard a leopard calling. Probably, it must have been around about Twin Dams area, probably even further south. It was very, very far south. And so I'm sure Tingana is a long way south, which is probably the reason that Mvula is in this vicinity. You will be very wary, keeping an eye out for the bigger and younger male leopard. Peyton, I agree with you completely. It's exactly the sentiment I have whenever I feel, or whenever I hear of Mvula. You say it's good to hear that he's still around and eating and managing to stay out of the grips of Tingana. Yes, absolutely it is. If you are a new viewer and wondering what we're talking about, Mvula and Tingana, 2 of our male leopard characters. Mvula in the twilight of his career, and sort of not quite a-territorial, but not very territorial, staying out of the way of the larger and younger, stronger male that is Tingana, who has sort of taken over this area. And we see Tingana much more frequently these days than we do Mvula. Mvula is around about, well, there's some debate as to his age, but he's probably around 12 or 13, and Tingana pushing 10. Like I say, if the sound does go a bit wobbly, I'm sorry about that. It is my microphone in my beanie, because it's so cold today, so freezing. Alrighty, the next time you see me, I'm going to make an effort to find you something of biological significance. While I look for that thing of biological significance, Tayla McCurdy is still on foot. I'm not sure what she's found. I have no idea where she is. I have no idea what she's looking at, but she will tell you.
James, I'm not on foot. I am on my hands. And that's my handstand dance today, because now look at what has gone on. My shirt is upside down. I'm dirty. I've pulled my cable out of my hat, thinking that in the long run, that was probably not a very good idea. Now I need to get dressed again for the third time today. Let's try and do this again. Please excuse me while I re-clip my hair. Take all the grass off of me, dust my hands, tuck my shirt back in, pull the wires into the pockets. I think I'm ready. No, I've just pulled my hair out again. Right. Yes, it's quite difficult. You will be surprised as to how many cables are actually attached to me. So if you heard all that banging around inside my hat, that was me just pushing the wire, because the mic cable is now slipping all the way back down towards my ponytail. Everything's not working now. Sometimes I have to look in the mirror to make sure I tuck everything correctly. But now we've got to go slowly down here. Not my morning, yes, Louise. Louise says that it's not my morning. Oh, it's okay. I'm not even sad the slightest. It was actually quite comical this morning. Yes, I did have a good chuckle at myself. I thought, well, that's pretty normal. This type of thing happens to me often, and it hadn't happened in quite some time, so I thought I was due. So I'm wondering what else is going to go on. It is not... No, it's not Friday the 13th. We're well past... Why did I think it was Friday the 13th today? I have absolutely no idea. I was going to blame it on that, but I cannot. I know it's Tuesday, it's 25th. I'm sorry. I don't know the... Darby, thank you. David says almost, so at least he's being kind. Yes, no, I had a moment there where I didn't even know what was going on. Now, there is a fungus attacking all the grasses, and we were actually talking about it the other day. I think James had spotted it, and I had said that I think it is a fungus called ergot, and I think it is. It grows on all the panicum grasses. I think this is some of it yet. Normally starts to attack on the inflorescence, and you won't believe it, but they used to manufacture LSD from this, and of course locals would take it to induce a trance-like state where they could indeed speak to their spiritual ancestors. Now, as promised, James is searching for something that is actually alive. He's managed to find it. Before it runs away, let's go across to him.
There it is, everybody. A kudu. Something alive. Not sure why it is that Tayla's talking about lysergic acid dithylamide. But our kudu is now, of course, hiding behind a bush in fear that Siberia Zumi might make another joke about this one. Come on, Siberia, let's see. Do your worst. See what you can come up with here. It's looking fairly fluffy, this kudu, and I'm probably just developing its winter coat. They do get winter coats, just slightly longer than their summer coats. There you can see. Looks like it might be quite nice to snuggle in there of a cool morning. I'm not sure the kudu would agree with that. And she's unusually on her own. Now, this is the largest antelope that we get in this region. The male is getting up to almost 270 kilograms. Can you believe it? You can multiply that by 2.2 if you have an exceptional ability to do mental mathematics. Oh man, I mean, this kudu really is a disaster. Let me go backwards a bit. Maybe she'll show us her face. Because while her bottom is relatively interesting, it's not nearly as interesting as her face. Nothing can take away the glory of finding an animal, even though we can't see it. Right, here we go, Rowan. You should be able to get some kind of view through there. Can you? No, she just put her head down. Now she's not grazing. I know it looks like she's grazing, but she isn't. She's found some sort of dicotyledonous plant. What? Just quickly zoom in there. What is she eating? We missed that. That almost looked like grass. In theory, they don't eat grass, but in extreme situations. Let's see if she does the same again. In theory, they eat largely just browse. Which now she's doing. She's now eating the white berry bush. Now I was listening to, I don't know if any of you have come across David White. I'm not sure how you describe him. He's a poet, I guess, and he's a sort of motivational speaker, if you like, but I guess you might call him a philosopher. Anyway, he's got this lovely lilting Irish accent, and he was talking about how he was trained as a biologist, and he went off on this expedition to the Galapagos Islands, and as many of us have used this sort of cliche joke, he said none of the animals there had read any of the textbooks that he had read, and they insisted on living lives of their own accord, and to the beat of their own drums. And he used it as an analogy for how we look at the world generally. We put a grid over it, he said, and that grid is so thick and so confined that we're unable to sort of see the world working outside of our specific sort of narrow way of thinking. And this is quite a nice sort of reminder of that when you see a kudu grazing, when you're told countless people that kudu simply do not graze. Well, clearly they do. I mean, you will read that they do sometimes. Anyway, that's my kudu story. The other thing he said in this little talk that I was listening to, which I always quite like, is that when you are in the wilderness, or he lives in the Pacific Northwest now, he did when he made this sort of talk, did this talk, and he's sort of learnt a bit about the indigenous legends of the area, and he talks about this youngster going into the forest and saying to his grandmother and grandfather, "But what if I get lost?" And the grandmother and grandfather tell him that he isn't lost, although he might not know where he is. The forest knows exactly where he is, but he goes on to give the child a warning, and that warning is that the forest, while it may provide you with medicine, it may provide you with food, it will just as soon kill you as it will look at you. And I just love that, because it's the sense of why the wilderness, of course, to us is such an exciting place. It is a place of great peace and great beauty conflicted, and of course combined with tremendous violence sometimes. And it's that element of, I suppose, raw savagery, which Brian Schubert, of course, would love me to say, that just makes it so compelling. It's that feeling of connection with the edge of existence that perhaps makes it so compelling. Right. Did you enjoy that philosophy lesson there, Rowan? Or am I talking utter nonsense? Quite possibly I'm talking utter nonsense. Let's try and find some wild dogs. So I'm going to continue to try and ponder some updates. Louise, what is Jamie doing right now? Alright, Jamie is apparently still looking around for tracks of leopards. I'm not sure where she is. Hopefully she will be able to locate herself more effectively.
I have been herded gradually to the west by the dripping sky, And since it is such a quiet moment, it does give us a wonderful moment to wax to be philosophical about why the wilderness is so wonderful. And the wilderness is wonderful, even when it does rain upon our heads. I wish it would rain leopards, though. Or just leopard tracks. Anything we could follow would be fantastic. But it's very, very quiet. I've been chatting to the bushwalk team as well through the Game Drive radio, the way in which we communicate with other guides. They're not too far away from where we are now, so we've both had similar ideas. But the tracks are quiet, the morning is quiet, everything's hiding away in the damp and the cool. It does smell absolutely amazing though, particularly when it first started raining, that incredible petrichor scent that filled our nostrils. It's a beautiful, beautiful smell. I wish I could bottle it. It's the one smell I wish I would I know I would definitely wear as a, well, I don't know if I would wear it as a perfume, but I would definitely scent my room with. And the bushwalk team, judging by their footprints, has already come south along this road, and that tells me which way I'm going to go. Their tracks head along down there, so let us continue on west. There we go, there's their tracks there. I'm going to continue on, I think. And they're going south, they're checking. All sorts of different things motivate us as to which way we go and which direction we travel in. Sometimes it's the weather. And it looks as though the weather's much nicer over Arathusa, so I might go there, given the absence of any leopard tracks on this road. Oh, by the way, update from the guys who can drive on Buffelshoek. The leopard is in Mvula. So he was on Djuma last night, which he seems to be doing more and more frequently. He's now back on Buffelshoek. Just that little bit too far. He's so close to the boundary, but just that little bit too far for us to have a chance to see him. But he is alive and well, and he's got a kill with him. So I thought you might all want to know that. Ooh, banded mongoose. How weird is that? No, don't go. Oh, drat. I was just talking about them. It's the 4th time I've seen them. There's one over there, Seb. Oh no! Oh! Oh, you little rats. They're social like Dwarf mongoose, but much, much larger. And as I said, this is only the 4th time I've seen them. Come back! Why are you so shy? I don't understand what the difference is. In other places I've worked, they're banded mongoose all over the show. And they're just like our Dwarf mongoose, completely relaxed. Let's try further back, you never know, we might get lucky. What on earth is the difference here? I can't understand it. Why are they so shy? Utterly bizarre to me. And they're very, very, very quick. They've all disappeared down into this drainage line. Drat. Sometimes the alarm call of a bird helps, because they come out, they pop out to investigate what's going on. No such luck. Drat. One day we will probably get them on camera. About double the size of a Dwarf mongoose, but social in exactly very, very similar way. They're about this big, and there's a pair of them that lives in the estate that we live in Hoedspruit, and comes to visit us every now and again, and they come running up your leg and into your shirt. You get a little mongoose cuddle. They have, however, completely destroyed our wooden doors. The termites started the process, and the Dwarf mongoose finished the job, looking for scorpions in our wooden doors. They have increased the urgency with which we now need to replace those doors, because they're now blocked up by cooler boxes. Okay. I don't think patience is going to work here. They're too shy. I'm going to grieve over the fact that I couldn't show you a banded mongoose, but let's carry on a little bit, maybe 200 meters to the south of where I am, and see whether Taylor's had any more luck on foot.
Well, so we're not too far from you. I think I could actually hear your car. And Jamie, I'm very sad for you because you are indeed Safari Live's Mongoose Whisperer. So the fact that you couldn't give them out, I don't think you should feel too bad. I feel as though it probably wouldn't even worked with us. But we are still searching for insects and all sorts of things. It's very quiet out here on this chilly morning. What is that? It is a piece of grass. Nope, that's nothing. And this is what I've been doing, is that David and I have been walking, sticking our heads into all sorts of things. Now I'm hoping that if we stick our heads further enough and into the trees and sort of to the middle of shrubs like this, we might find ourselves a chameleon, just trying to keep out of the cool weather. But it is not working so well just yet. So that's where they normally like to sit on the cooler days, not exposing themselves out at night. Hang on, is this rain? I'm hoping it's rain, otherwise I'm touching animal urine of some sort. I think it is just... Does it smell like urine, do you? I don't know what I'm smelling, but you can see there's lots and lots of little drops. No, David, it's the rain. So it started drizzling at one point, and from probably, about 15 minutes ago, it was a couple of spits and spatters. Now, I thought that this maybe was a scent mark from a lion, from a leopard, perhaps spraying up on these leaves, but there's no scent. It is not sticky, and I think it's only on the top side of the leaves, so it means that it must only be from the rain. And also, we would have seen footprints, I suppose, where I'm running away from Darby. Oh, we have got a grasshopper, though. Yeah, it's one of those ones that are very camouflaged and look just like the sand. Now, we've gone from being plagued by locusts and grasshoppers to not really seeing too much at all. Can you believe that? But there is a little fella who is standing very still, just pretending that it cannot be seen. But, grasshopper, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. We can indeed see you. Now, I think that this is a nymph. I don't think that this is fully grown just yet. Let's see, watch it, see if it's going to jump. Can you jump high? You see, look at that. Even reluctant to move, just because it is quite cold. It actually makes insect viewing quite great, because instead of worrying about them leaping out of frame like I just did there with my tiny little stick, you can see that it doesn't really mind being moved around or actually getting close to at all. It's quite comfortable. Probably not actually comfortable, probably it's just frozen and it can't waste any energy hopping away. Grasshopper, I feel bad though, because you're right on the middle of the road and I can see tire tracks under your feet. Now, I don't want you to get squashed, so I'm going to just go. Keep walking. Hey, and it did a big leap. There we go. That's its leap for the day. But I'd prefer it to, of course, stay out of the road so that it doesn't get driven over. But we are just about to pop out now onto Gowrie Main on Weaver's Nest. And this is where we had the hyenas yesterday morning. But sadly, no luck just yet. No hyenas here. No fresh leopard tracks. No tracks at all. In fact, it's a bit barren. I think we've been walking all the wrong roads this morning. All the animals are just walking around us and making us laugh. Now, this is normally a go-to spot. Normally you can come around here and you'll see either a lion track, a leopard track, or a hyena footprint. Normally that's the case. Let me see if I can find any of them. Oh, I can see some hyena tracks, but they're very, very faint in this thick sand. Let's see if we can find some good ones from early this morning. It actually doesn't look like there were any here this morning. These tracks all look like they're from, these ones over here, all look like they're from a little bit later last night. They look like they've had a bit of sand sort of kicked up. It doesn't look particularly fresh. You can see there's the back of the foot and the toes. Actually, this one's slightly better, but you can see the toes are basically disappeared into the sand and just become one. So very difficult, of course, to track in this light is not helping. So it seems as though the hyenas were not here this morning. Maybe they started their venture here last night and moved elsewhere in the morning. I did hear lots of hyenas calling last night. there was quite a bit of whooping going. But we're going to keep searching, of course, for anything that could perhaps be in some of these leaves. There's nothing at the moment. James is still bumbling around. Let's go and see what else he's got planned for this morning.
Let us have a look at a flower, everybody, because there's nothing else out here. There is some spitting rain and really nothing else. We did see another kudu. It disappeared, of course. No wild dog tracks. I'm extremely frustrated by the fact that I cannot even tell where they've gone. Let me detach myself quickly from the car. Alrighty. It's not even a flower you haven't seen before. Well, some of you might not have seen it before. There is the devil's thorn. And it is quite beautiful. In fact, it's very beautiful. And of course, as we all know, it's used as soap. We're not going to demonstrate that right now. But we will just have a last look at those ultraviolet emitting stripes. Many insects, of course, see in ultraviolet and will attract insects towards the flower to pollinate it. And what they do is amazingly cleverly designed. If you look there, you can see it's like a landing strip. So the insect will land, like my finger is doing, go in there, try and get the food or the nectar from inside the flower. And in so doing, you can see the anthers on the top there. Can you see them there? Those two brown bits there, they carry the pollen. So the insect will go into the flower, pick up the pollen on its back, on hairs often, and then fly away to another flower, do exactly the same thing, and pollinate. And I just think that is a remarkably clever design. And I think you'll find that most trumpet-shaped flowers are precisely that. That's what the idea is behind them. But it's that ultraviolet landing strip that attracts insects that can see the reflection of ultraviolet that I just think is quite astounding. That is my story of the flower. What else is around here that we might have a look at? There is the call of the white-browed scrub robin. There's a white flower that has arrested my attention here. I'm not going to pick it, I'll just pick one of the seeds. It is a white plumbago, because there's only one or two flowers left, so I'm not going to pick them. And these, of course, distribute themselves in an entirely different way. Well, the seeds distribute in a different way. The seeds of that devil's thorn will eventually form a very nasty sort of devil horn-shaped seed pod. And then this thing, and then that will stick onto the bottom of an animal's feet and eventually be distributed that way. This is the plumbago seed, or the plumbago pod. And it is very sticky, and it will stick onto the coats of animals and be distributed that way round. It's designed like Velcro, you see. It's very clever. Right, on we go. Let us press on with this quest. This unfruitful quest. We may as well be looking for the Holy Grail out here. I think there's only one more road to check before we've run out of roads entirely. Just keep an eye on the dam cam. Those hounds could easily pitch up there at some stage. Oh, there's some Impala. Good grief, look at that. What a joy. They're looking slightly alarmed, which I suppose is a positive thing. There. Is that right, Ron? Sorry, I parked you on a bit of a slope. Now, zombie night owl, aka tormented zombie owl, you say, should the predators not be out in such cool weather hunting? I would suggest that they should be doing precisely that. And indeed they probably are. and it's just that we're not being very clever at finding them. They could easily be out hunting as we speak. I'm not sure in which parts of the reserve, though. But yes, you are correct. Certainly the lions would move in weather like this if they wanted to eat. Leopards definitely. And the wild dogs, I suspect, would have killed already by now. And they'll be under a bush somewhere. That's a really pretty herd of impala. And they, of course, unlike the kudu, are not specialized to any particular method of eating. They can browse or they can graze. Kenneth, you're wondering about sleep, which of course is a very good thing to be wondering about this time of the day. And you say, are antelope able to sleep standing up? No, they are not, as far as I'm aware. They can probably doze while they're standing. But they lie down, Kenneth. These impala will lie down of a night in a clearing. One or two will always be awake, keeping watch. But they do sleep lying down. Normally with their heads up. So they sort of fold their legs up underneath them and their heads stay relatively upright. They don't lie down flat. Zebra, of course, like horses, will lie down flat from time to time. But these chaps sleep a little bit like cows do, sort of with their heads up and their legs folded underneath. There's quite an... What are you chaps nervous of? I can hear a woodpecker pecking. I'm just going to see if I can spot it. Give me 1 second. The rain seems to be holding off for now, so I can retrieve a pair of binoculars. It's probably a cardinal woodpecker from the very gentle tick, 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 as opposed to vicious pop, 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 pop. Can you hear it there, Rian? Yeah. I'm sure it's on that dead marula tree behind us. Not behind us, behind where we're looking. But I cannot see the woodpecker. How typical. Let me just go a little bit backwards. On a quiet morning like this, it is important to look for woodpeckers. Oh, this is an astounding development, everybody. Jamie Patterson has managed to track down a dove.
What can I say? I'm just that good. We have managed to track down a dove, and not only have we done that, but we've put ourselves in a perfect position as it gets closer and closer to the car. And I'd better keep my voice down just in case I scare it away. We're right on the boundary, so it could go on to Hoffman's, in which case we can't follow it. It's one of those mornings, everybody. This is an emerald spotted wood dove, and I personally think they're gorgeous. They're very sweet little birds, very tiny little birds, with those gorgeous emerald spots that if the sun is shining, which of course today it is not, but should it be shining, you would be able to see the gorgeous gleam to those little spots, those dark spots near its tail, that gives the emerald spotted wood dove its name. It's got one of the most beautiful calls in the world. Which apparently is bad luck to listen to in some cultures, to listen to the entire call. You'll bring bad luck upon your family if you do, which is very silly. These birds are not bad luck. In fact, this has been the best luck we've had all morning, and yet the luck increases. There was the briefest flash of a dwarf mongoose. My goodness, it's all happening here on Gowrie Main. I don't know where to look. Actually, Seb, we've got some of them popping out now to the left of us on this termite mound. Now we'll move away from our dove for now, as exciting, as riveting as our dove has been, as it wanders along the road. Of course, now I've said that, guess what? They're here. They're just all hiding from us. Wait, I'll find one for you. I promise you they're on this termite mound. Right at the top there's one. No, this is getting ridiculous. I promise you there's a dwarf mongoose that was there. Oh! There was a hop.
Oh, wait, there's one right there.
Oh, there's one right here. There's one right here. Behind the grass. Next to invisible. Best view of a dwarf mongoose we've ever had. Hello. There we go. See, sometimes patience is a virtue. Now listen, dwarf mongoose, I want to have a conversation with you. Why are you lot so comfortable with us? I mean, I got within 3 meters of a dwarf mongoose yesterday on foot. Why are you so comfortable with us, but your banded mongoose cousins don't want to have anything to do with us? What is it? What is the difference between your little personalities? They're actually having a little bit of a scuffle. Now we're going to have a groom. They've been chasing each other round and around and around and around. Why? What is it? What is the difference? I can't work it out. One of them having a jolly good dig into the termite mound hole. What you after? There's a termite in there, perhaps. Sharp little claws sending dirt everywhere. And you can usually tell when a mongoose has been digging. Oh, I think it got something. Oh, no, maybe not. Back in. You can always tell when a mongoose has been digging. They dig very characteristic little holes in the side of the termite mounds. Oh, dirt flying everywhere. Amazing reach for such a tiny creature. What's in there? Something exciting, something definitely worth investing some time in. Oh my goodness. I know we're busy looking at this, but Seb, you should see what's in the road in front of us. Surprise! Patience. Patience, patience. Sometimes pays off in unexpected ways. Perhaps it's just competition. Perhaps it's just the fact that there are more dwarf mongoose than there are banded mongoose. I cannot understand the difference in personalities on this reserve because everywhere I've worked, banded mongoose have just been as relaxed as dwarf mongoose. Fascinating. I must try and ask people in the know. I know a few dwarf mongoose researchers. Perhaps they can tell me what it is about these mongoose that creates this difference. What you doing? You up to no good, huh? Whee! That's my branch. That's my branch. I want this branch. Oh, no I don't. It's got thorns. No it doesn't. Onto the leaf. Now I'm going to dig. These are young mongoose. They're not quite fully grown. They're close to, but that's not quite a fully grown dwarf mongoose. Cindy, absolutely, I can see where you're coming from. You want to know if they're related to ferrets. They are, distantly. They're not, however, part of the same family. So, ferrets are placed in the mustelid family. That's the same family that includes things like honey badgers and otters. Dwarf mongoose and mongoose in general are part of the herpestid family. Oh, now Michi. The Herpestidae family, which is connected to the mustelid family in terms of evolution. This one's a jumpy one. Oh, I want my stick again. It's my comfort stick. What on earth are you doing? This mongoose is crazy. This is the coolest one of the group. Just has the odd hop, skip and jump moment and then gets distracted. If I were a mongoose, this would be me. Whee! And back there. It's hilarious. gone. Oh, and back! I promise you, this is bonkers. Whee! What are you doing? Oh, bye. Oh. It's coming back out. There we go. Now we've got another pair of them. Having a jolly good groom. My mongoose has disappeared for now. If Jamie were a mongoose. They're full of the joys of spring this morning. Perhaps they're just happy that it stopped raining and it's time to go out and eat some breakfast. Full of the joys of autumn. Yes, Lou, you are correct. They are full of the joys of autumn. It's certainly not spring, as the days get shorter. My first thought was actually that there might be pugnacious ants around there, but I don't see any. Because that's how I move when I walk into a pugnacious ant's nest. And they swarm all over your toes and bite them. And I've seen my dog, my Weimaraner, do the same thing. But I don't think that's what's goading them into this playful state of mind.